Celtics Talk podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. 11 locations across New England.
What's up, everybody? Off-day edition of the Celtics Talk podcast coming to you as Celtics fans process the last 2-minute report following that terrible loss in Indianapolis, where referees didn't do any favors to the Celtics and then further trolled them by declaring that, yeah, they messed up a couple calls, but not the one that Celtics fans were most messed up. No, that was the right play, that Jaylen Brown definitely did not get fouled when it was obvious he got fouled. So called up my buddy Cerrone Battle and said, let's run through this. Let's first, we're going to have a little vent session, and then we're going to turn the page. We're going to be looking ahead. I want to talk about the roster construction deep into the future, deep into the future of this season, I should say, with the trade deadline 1 month away. And then I want to talk about the All-Star game, which guys from the Celtics are definitely going to be there. And then we're going to do a little segment called What's Bugging You? Because I know the Celtics are the best team in the league, and this isn't meant to be negative or accentuate the negative, but there's just little things they need to clean up. And maybe some of that was accentuated in this little home and home in Indy. So we'll just kind of get a few things off our chest, and we'll talk about whether that will impact their quest for Banner 18 or if they'll tidy up some of those things. But let's get right into it. Here's my chat with Cerrone. All right, Cerrone. Last 2-minute report came out a little bit before we started rolling here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I want to put it. I don't even know if I want to go down this. I promised myself I would not linger on this topic because it just makes me so mad that we even have a last 2-minute report. Like, it's so dumb.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. Okay, let's just look. Hands up. We made some mistakes. Does that make anybody feel? How did you feel when you saw the egregiousness of a last 2-minute report that said there was essentially 3 errors in the final 3.5 seconds of this game?
Well, it was kind of, I wouldn't say obvious, but it was like, yeah, there was some, but that was a pretty obvious slap in the back of the head on Jaylen Brown. And then the Porzingis one, it looked like he clearly jumped into Porzingis, and Porzingis was a victim of just being the bigger guy. I think you can't call that you can't reverse that play and then call that on the other end like that to end the game. That's just terrible.
That's where I like the one thing that I walk away and I say the Celtics played terrible in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. They had a whole bunch of miscues, including I don't love that shot by Jaylen Brown.
I thought he forced it.
Right. And I don't love any of those things. And yet, it can't be both ways. He got fouled. He did what he was supposed to do. If, he should have got to the free throw line, should have had a chance to put his team ahead. And yet, I don't know how you go to the monitor and overturn that. How many times between the NFL and the NBA and do we see them go to the monitor and just say there's not enough conclusive evidence to overturn that call?
Yeah.
For the ref to be as bullish as he was, and now he's further emboldened by the NBA saying that it was the correct call. It blows my mind. And then to just fully troll Celtics fans, the two players at the other end, they're saying Miles Turner set an illegal screen, and then Kristaps cleanly blocked it, which, I mean, I didn't even have a problem with that foul call. I thought legit that was a foul, but like you said, it has to go both ways.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, the Jaylen Brown one, it was so obvious. The Pacers players were giggling. They knew he got hit in the back of the head. It was pretty, yes, he might have got the ball, but that's the way the NBA treats players in the act of shooting. There's no way that's not a foul. He clearly hit him in his head. And on the other end, I do get it because, like I just said, the NBA is funny when it comes to contesting shots, jump shots. So yes, I could see a foul there, but the one on the other end, and one thing, like you did say, I think Jaylen forced that. It looked like he wasn't really triple team, but there was a lot of attention toward him. And he kind of double pumped it, kind of Kobe Bryant style on that one. I thought he clearly drew the foul, but I think that was a bad shot. And I think they kind of got a better look. And they were moving the ball in spectacular fashion, I think, for that whole game. And I think on that final play, if they would have done so on that, they probably would have came up with a good shot. Don't know if it would have went in, but I think they would have got a good attempt.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, everyone, I want you to kind of bookmark in your mind that conversation. We're gonna circle back to that later. one of our topics. but I do want to just move forward because
Yeah.
there's no sense in lingering. And if that last 2 minute report gave you any bit of closure, or if all it did was make you angry, there's nothing you can do. Celtics have two like really interesting games coming up with Minnesota, a chance for revenge there, then going up to Milwaukee. You got Houston on Saturday and the return of Ime. So I am just gonna tunnel vision. I'm gonna claw through this mess of a report and move it forward. I told you there's three big questions I have for you about the where the Celtics stand and sort of what's in front of them. And I want to start with this. We're 1 month out from the NBA trade deadline, and I'm grabbing the low hanging fruit here. People love trade chatter. They love roster construction, and I'm kind of with them. It's funny that the Celtics are the best team in basketball and like by a decided margin, and yet everyone's like, who should be the ninth man on this roster, but we love backup quarterbacks. We love these conversations. And so I'll just start like from the 10,000 foot view. When you look at this roster, and I think it's a good exercise coming off a night where you didn't have two of your top seven. How are you feeling about where the Celtics stand roster wise? And do you think, having heard Brad Stevens come out last week and talk a little bit about, we're in the market for a big wing and kind of looking at maybe that's on the roster, maybe that's elsewhere. How are you feeling about the general state of this roster?
Well, I think the roster is good. I mean, it's pretty obvious they're good. I think their weakness coming into the season, early parts of the season, people looked at their bench. And I think lately, I think the bench has become a strength of theirs. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Pritchett, Hauser, those guys, their plus and minus and stuff like that are going up. They're playing good basketball. I think when you incorporate the bench with the starters like he's been doing, they've looked excellent. And I think they've taken games where it's been a 6-7 point lead. And when the benches come in, they've pushed it to double digits and held. And I think that's what you want to see in a championship caliber team. But like last night, I mean, they scored 130 points, whatever it was. I think one thing I would like to add is somebody that can score when all else fails. When the screens aren't getting guys free, guys aren't hitting shots from deep. Somebody who can put the ball on the floor and score on their own. And I don't know if you can get him in the buyout market or a trade or whatever, but I'm gonna get crushed for this. But I think it'd be a cool time to spin the block with somebody like Gordon Hayward.
Ooh, so okay, I will say, because I for a lot of the offseason, I sort of had the same little fantasy. Problem is that one of the new sort of CBA rules are that teams that are on that second apron like the Celtics, they can't sign anyone who's bought out whose contract is more than the mid-level exception.
Oh, okay.
So I don't mean to stomp on your dream because
no, that's all right. That's all right, man. It's okay.
But and it's funny because like I keep catching myself because there are guys out there that are sort of right on that line. So like Kelly Olynyk's one of those guys. He's just below it. So if he were to get bought out, which I don't think is going to happen, it's a potential. But a lot of these bigger contracts, unless there's some wizardry that I'm unaware of, they cannot go fully after this. But the good thing is there's other teams out there, other contenders that will not be able to make a play for those services. Okay. Unfortunately, I think teams like Miami still can. I got to double check that. I should probably I don't want to put false information out there, but it does limit the amount. But I think you are tracking right towards the right sort of player, right? Like someone who can give you a little bit of something on both ends, who now Gordon's been a huge usage guy for his career, and probably his best basketball is when he has the basketball in his hand. But someone who can step back and just direct an offense, be a good ball mover. The hard part is when you start looking at the Celtics assets, whether it's hoping a guy comes through the waiver wire like that, or if it's a guy who, makes less than $6.2 million, which is the number we'll get hung up on for this trade exception. It's hard to find. Like every time I find a guy, I'm like, ooh, that's him. It's like $13 million, $17 million.
Yeah.
I start, I selfishly, when John Morant goes down last night, I'm like, all right, let's go get Marcus Smart back here. Like, how are we doing this?
You can pull somebody. Yeah.
I don't even same deal. I don't even know if that's legal, but I'm just gonna start daydreaming about it. How are you feeling about the big man depth? Has Nemish Queta and Luke Cornett shooting ice water in his veins after free throws? Is that making you feel any better about the big man spot, or are you still like, is that a potential avenue that Brad Stevens should think about?
You know what? I wouldn't force a move there. I like Cornette. I like what he's been doing lately. He's not gonna. He doesn't do anything to lose you a game. Cornette, I think he only helps, and I like his energy. He's got great hands. He's old school way. He keeps the ball high, easy, simple layups. He almost got the tip in.
Oh my God!
That was crazy.
I mean, the internet would have burned down if not only did Derek White already from Game 6 of Miami if involved in miraculous finishes. But if Luke could tip that ball, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it would have been amazing.
Yeah, he has good awareness. He has a good eye for the balls, good hands, soft hands around the rim, something you need for a big. He makes his free throws.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're fine there because I don't see a lot of teams that are deep at center that you're going to run into where it's like, man, they got a stable of bigs. You're going to play a team like the Bucks who have Lopez and Giannis, but then after that, there's a drop off when it comes to size. I think the Celtics with Horford, the way he's playing ball, and Porzingis, I think they're good there. But I think Cornette is serviceable for where they need him to play. I think they're pretty good there. But if you can get one, I'd grab one for one reason, and that's you're expecting Horford and Porzingis to make it to June, which is 6 months from now. That's a long way to go and a long time to manage minutes. So if you have a guy you can just plug in there just to spell those guys minutes or a day off, whatever it may be, a little load management. Or if one of those dudes, knock on wood, one of those guys do go down for a couple weeks, you have somebody you can just plug in. But I like the idea, and he's not a super big, but I like the idea of Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah,
I think he can give you the scoring part. He's a big body. He's a very smart player. It's something that would fit in good with this team. But somebody like that, I think, would be a good asset. But I don't think they have to really break the bank to get a center in.
Yeah, so and I know they liked Kelly last year was one of the ideas that they sort of bounced around. The problem was he was still under contract for another year. Danny Ainge is not going to move an asset like Kelly without getting a quality return because the Jazz need every bit of assets, even though he's already stockpiled a bunch of picks out there. And I could definitely see them being interested. Now, again, that salary number is difficult for them to get to. You'd have to pretty much empty the bench, trade all these $2 million guys. And I don't think that's something that they can do, even if they sweeten it with picks. I think the more likely route is that there's just a lukewarm market for Kelly and they negotiate some sort of buyout where Utah saves a bunch of money. But again, I go back to it. I think Danny's going to be motivated to get picks. And this is what makes it complicated is you're left for probably the cut above the type of player that you want, the type of player that could decidedly enter your rotation. It's just a cumbersome path. And even like we saw with Daniel Tice, he gets bought out by Indy and the Clippers have more playing time for him. So he's more eager to go to that situation. Yeah. So I think you will find championship chasers that will be like intrigued by Boston's situation, but they're going to look at it and go, wait, you're telling me that like last year, Mike Muscala came in here and barely played. There's no guarantee that there's going to be minutes for those guys. And so I think that's just going to make them tread cautiously. I'm very eager to see how they play it. Like, is there a guy out there at that salary number using that Grant trade exception that would make you think of like, okay, let's do this? I will say I'm curious your thoughts on, let's say there's minimal shuffling on the bench. Maybe they add like one guy that fits into the top 10. How do you think, so a lot of the guys went guaranteed on Monday or technically today, they didn't cut him by Monday. So they went guaranteed today. That would be Luke, who we, felt pretty good about being here. Lamar Stevens, who has actually been sort of a surprise to me that hasn't really gotten the opportunity. He started so many games last year in Cleveland. Svi and Delano Banton. Do you think all those guys will be here if there is a shuffle or, part of them might have to be trade assets to go out, but my mind starts going, the Celtics are on the books for a lot of money in the tax. I don't know if they want to carry guys that just are not going to be surefire, someone you might lean on.
Yeah, I mean, the Stevens situation is interesting to me. I thought he was going to play a lot.
Right.
I thought he was going to be more along the lines of that Grant Williams role for them, similar body type, similar skill set. I thought he would play more, and I think he's shown well in the games he has played. I understand their depth is hard for him to crack it, but Banton, it seems like somebody they like. He gets a lot of playing time with guys around, so I think he'll be around. Luke will be around. Svi, I don't know. I think he's a good shooter, but I think it's hard for him to crack the rotation.
Yeah,
it's just tough for him.
I go back to it, like he was flirting with the idea of going overseas, and I'm wondering, there's got to be something in the back of his mind that just said, as much as he's probably enjoying it, he got to hang out with KP and JB. They went down to Florida over one of the long weekends. Like, it's a good situation for him, and he certainly wants to prove. But nothing like what ended the last year in Charlotte, he got a chance to like really play and get that shot going and played well. I mean, it's hard when you're playing 3-4 minutes a night. And I wonder if when all the shuffling's done, if the Celtics just can't commit to keeping him onto the roster long term. They already have one spot open. Depending on if they add anybody, it could free up a spot to add Nemi Ishketa to the parent roster off of the two-way, give him a little bit of security, reward him for being an emergency player this year. But I'm eager to see, like, part of me says it's good chemistry. There's not a huge opportunity here. But you start worrying about injuries, as you said. Like, what happens if Al goes down for a week or two? Like, how are you navigating that? It's hard enough on back-to-backs when you don't have all your guys, but you do play small in the playoffs a lot. So I don't know. But my long-winded way of saying Brad Stevens has a tough decision to make about just how much he pushes in, but that's why he gets paid a bunch of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation, but it's a good situation because he has a good team. He has a lot of depth. I mean, they're just making tweaks, but 1 through 8 or whatever, they're better than everybody in the league, I believe. The Clippers have a lot of talent, but I think their depth kind of drips off a little bit, and you can't trust a lot of guys on that team. But for many reasons. But a question I have for you: what do you think of Jordan Walsh, man?
So I thought, at the start of Maine, he was a little bit. It was so funny because he was so good at summer league, and summer league can sometimes be hard to show what you can do because everyone's trying to get their own, and it's kind of ragged play, much like the G League, where sometimes you're not running sets and offense a whole lot. You're just like, guys are trying to get theirs, and now the Maine they do a good job trying to install what Boston is doing, so they have an idea when you get up there, but. A lot of these teams, guys on the other side, I think, where am I getting my next contract? I'm just going to be gunning for numbers here. I thought he struggled a little bit with the 3-point shot out of the gate. Was a little raw defensively, as good as you could tell the skills were, they didn't quite figure it out. And then I don't know, maybe it's slowed down from the last couple of weeks. You look up and he's up over 40% shooting recently from beyond the 3-point arc. It just feels like he's one guy that when they were kind of looking, when they keep hearing Brad say, we need a big wing, I'm surprised he hasn't at least gotten a call up to get thrown into one of these games in the crazy stretch. I mean, Joe didn't even play him in trash time of that one other busy stretch out west. And so I feel kind of bad for him, but I think they're just acknowledging he's 19. He's still got to kind of beef up a little bit, but you can see the raw potential. I think they're a little worried about throwing him into the Wolves right now on a team with such high desires.
Yeah, I mean, I like the kid. I've liked him coming out of college. Like you said, he got off to a slow start. But there was a couple games they had when they were up big. A lot of games they've been up big. Yeah. And I think it would have been cool for him to get some minutes in those stretches just to get the NBA feel and get used to the speed and pace, playing against the NBA level competition. And I think that would have took his game to another level. But I think Brad has one in Jordan Walsh. And maybe his time is coming next season, but I think he's a good player to kind of hang around. I thought about maybe what would he look like on this team on their bench they have now, but if the Svi and some of these other guys, Stevens, can't really get burned, it'll be really hard for him because those guys, they're specialists in certain areas. Svi's with his shooting, Stevens has the body, the rebounding and stuff like that. Yeah, he might not be ready for that level of ball yet, but somebody to definitely keep an eye on. I like him.
I like where your mind's at. I do think I remember Avery Bradley's first year in the league. He came in and he just could not make a shot. And they sent him to Maine for a good long stretch, let's say 2 months or whatever. And he came back to the Celtics time. We were on the road somewhere. I forget where it was. I remember because Avery came walking in and he had his hair had grown out wildly and Paul Pierce was ragging on him. But they sort of sent him up to Maine. They said, kind of figure your things out. And that stretch at the end of that season, even though the Celtics were a playoff team, really helped build his confidence. And then within a year or so, he's competing for Ray Allen's starting job because he blossomed into a good enough shooter. But defensively, it was clear he had that potential. I could see a similar, I would love to see Joe gain the confidence to just throw Jordan Walsh in there for a few games just to okay, here's what it's like in the NBA. Here's what you need to learn. And even though your development runs counter to maybe what we're trying to do with the championship, you can have both because of the way if the team's up big enough in game. So I will be eager to see if they give him some opportunity.
Look no further than the award-winning 24 Auto Group with over 2,600 vehicles in stock, the brands you love, backed by the savings and service you can count on. Visit today or shop online at 24autogroup.com.
One last thing to wrap the trade chatter. What is the worst possible destination that if someone made a play for Marcus Smart? Are you worried about the Bucks making a play, the Pacers, or I'm going to whisper this one, the Lakers?
The worst for the Celtics is Milwaukee because Milwaukee's a bad defensive team. And the last thing you want to see them pick up right now is a lockdown defender, because now it makes that matchup a lot tougher, and it gives them ball pressure up top to funnel guys toward Giannis and Lopez, something they don't have right now. I think for the Celtics, that's where you don't want them to go. The Sixers, I think they're a decent team, but I don't think he'd put them over the top over the Celtics. Western Conference, probably another deep team like the Clippers. James Harden is out there, Westbrook, but they're not defenders. Marcus Smart will give them a little edge and toughness, something they really don't have outside of Kawhi, and make them real dangerous in key stretches of games. They can play a real chess match if they have a Marcus Smart. So I would say the Clippers and the Bucks definitely in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and I haven't gone through the contracts to see which teams can really make this work, but I'm just telling you, when I saw John Morant go down, I hate that my mind spins that quickly to like the next step, but that's the way the league goes, and we know how much they struggled without Ja, and then to lose him for the year, like it's clear they probably would be better off trying to accumulate assets at this point and just getting ready for when he's healthy. Man, I don't want to see Marcus Smart across the court in the playoffs, and I was pretty bullish that wasn't going to happen in Memphis. Now I'm a little bit worried about what's out there. Let's spin it to something more positive. I told you, the All-Star voting, the Celtics are making a push for all 5 of their guys. We know that's not going to happen. Even with the best record in the NBA, it's ambitious to think you get even more than 2 based on only 12 spots in the Eastern Conference. But the Celtics, can make a strong case that if any team deserves 3, they're probably chief among them. So how does this play out now that we've had a little bit more time? We've seen the returns. I know all 5 guys were in the top 10 at their positions. How is this going to play out between now and I think it's probably the end of January when the coaches vote for the reserves? Who's going to make it? Who gets squeezed?
Man, I think Brown and Tatum for sure should be on there, even though the fan vote needs to be thrown in the trash. It was like LaMelo Ball over like Holiday and White. It's like, wait, we didn't even play it.
I mean, some of these are just like, I don't understand. And like Charlotte's won what, like 5 games this year? How is this happening?
But I think Tatum and Brown for sure get in. They better get in. I think Porzingis to me deserves to be in, but I think they need to go back to adding the center position. I thought they were supposed to, but Porzingis deserves to be in. But the way they have him in the same category as all these guys, I think it'd be hard for him to get in. But as a guard, man, Derek White, I think he belongs in, because out of all the guards on there, the Dames and, Maxi's on there now, Derek White is probably the best defender out of any guard, let alone the Eastern Conference, probably in the league. And he's been a walking bucket. His percentages, the team is winning, his defense, all of those things. I think he deserves to get a roster spot. So if they're going to put 3 guys in because of the Celtics position, I think Derek White might be that guy. He should be anyway.
It's funny because it comes off that 50-40-90 December. Like the campaign was in full swing. You got JJ Redick saying he's an all-star, inviting him on his podcast. I'm thinking in my mind this is happening too early. Like you need to wait.
Yeah, you got to wait another month.
Like another 3 weeks or something for that campaign to peak. That way, if there's like an injury replacement, Adam Silver's, checking his Twitter feed and he's like, oh, everyone's talking about Derek White. Derek's cooled a little bit, and that's all relative, right? He had like 1 bad shooting game, still impacted the game in other ways. And yet I'm with you. Like if I had to pick someone that I really want to see get to Indy, it would be Derek, because I think these opportunities don't come along very often. We're just going to take for granted how good he is in further seasons. And so I hope they at least give that some consideration. I think Adam Silver would probably have to be the one. Like if, let's say, I pitched it to you today on the email thread, was that, all right, when we didn't know what Halliburton's grade was yet. Now he's grade 1. It's games in Indy. I feel like he's going to probably be out there. This gives him enough time to rehab and be out there. But like, let's say there's a guard that just can't play for whatever reason, decides not to play, injury, whatever the case may be. If Adam Silver swoops in and says, this guy has impacted winning as much as anybody, that's going to be probably Derek's best pathway. Because as you said, fan voting is so fluky.
Yeah, it's
even combined with media, players, and coaches voting, it's going to be tough for him to climb that ladder. So my one hope is along with you is that Kristaps has been so good. The numbers don't pop quite as much because everyone here has taken a little bit of a step back in terms of output. But I think if anyone who's watched the Celtics, they know there's 2 different teams. There's when they've got Porzingis and when they don't. And I hope that they keep that the coaches keep that in mind when they are voting. It's gonna be interesting. Like I agree. I don't know what the fix is for the fan vote, and it's an exhibition game, so I can't complain about it too much. But when you only got 12 spots, I even said to Brett, Brad Stevens was talking about it the other day, and he's like, wait, we're still only at 12 spots. And I said, we need more. We need more spots.
They need to I think they need to go back to the way it used to be. I know they're going the whole positionless basketball thing or whatever, but at least add center
back in.
And I think point guard. I think they need to put separate from point guard. I mean, I don't know, but I just think they need to put the center position back, because then you would have, it'd be Giannis, it'd be Embiid, and probably KP. And then put the rest of the guys, since you really don't have power forwards anymore, then you could put a Julius Randle in the same category as Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, whatever, and just call them, your forwards or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think the center position needs to be separate, especially now. I think when they did this, the NBA was kind of lacking centers. But I think now the center position has exploded. You got your Wembys, you got, Towns and Gobert playing good ball. Jokic, of course, is playing good ball. Anthony Davis,
Embiid,
Giannis. There's so many now,
right?
Separate those guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I get it for the All NBA voting, and even that could get a little murky. I do like the idea of I get it. You couldn't put both Embiid and Jokic on first team All NBA, so you need to figure out something, right? So now we're going to go to generic front court, but All-Star game, those guys are going to make it. And it wouldn't be the worst. If you had to vote for a backup center, they're both so everyone's gonna make the All-Star team. So I'm with you. I think it was less of a need to go positionless there than necessarily with All NBA and all that. We'll see. The one thing I had lobbied for, and it's a terrible take, but the Pro Bowl has the special teamer makes it, and Matthew Slater can actually make a Pro Bowl because he's the best at his position. I don't know what the utility man in the NBA is, but I was trying to think, because everyone's like, well, what's Drew Holiday's pathway to making an All-Star game? And I said, it runs counter to everything that the NBA All-Star game is, but it would be really cool to just have one guy who wants to play defense. And Drew wouldn't even have to go play defense in the game, but at least reward him for being a really good defender. So maybe each conference gets one random, really good player at talent X.
Yeah, I mean, and the NBA used to do that. I mean, the Celtics, to go back to the 80s, Dennis Johnson made the All-Star team, I believe, with the Celtics. Dennis Rodman, Draymond Green. There's so many hustle guys that have been All-Stars, and now they've gone away from it. They just want the scoring. And I don't think that's fair to the guys that do everything else, the stuff that really leads to winning. But I agree with you. They got to find a way to get some of those guys in there and reward them. Or even, I know Holiday doesn't fit this description, but reward the six-man, six-man, Ginobili and Kevin McHale, and those guys were all-stars.
And make it more worthwhile for those guys. I know they get the six-man award to go for, but show that it's okay. You don't have to be a starter in order to make this game. You can just be the best player at your role. Yep. I would do that. 13th guy can be the best six-man in the league. And the 14th guy, I like the idea of a hustle guy, because then it gets malleable. You can be a defender. You can be a guy who just has an impact on the little things. So I like that. All right. We're workshopping. Adam Silver, get him on the line. We'll make it happen. I wanted to end on this. It's pretty much a BST segment, but I thought it was appropriate. I didn't want to be too sunshine and puppy dogs, and then I realized we're going to already be negative with the last 2-minute report, so maybe I didn't need this in here. But the Celtics have been really good. We can't be all green Kool-Aid around here. What is one thing that when you watch this team, you sit there and think, man, this is bugging the hell out of me?
I think it's we've touched on this before, the inconsistent with the shot selection sometimes. I think they see it and they understand it. When that ball moves and this skip, and they're getting, Jaylen Brown's been very aggressive in the paint, by the way. When guys are being aggressive going to the basket and they're cutting backdoor, it's movement. That flow is just beautiful to watch when they do it. And you see them get excited when they see the ball skip around 10 times and they get a layup. Consistently do it. Don't stop. Don't get caught in the deep ball shooting. I mean, I think it's gone. You haven't seen anything as crazy as the Warriors game or anything like that since then. Really, 50 plus, almost 63 pointers. I mean, last night it took 40 or something like that. But that was a high scoring up and down game. Both teams were just going at it. They were playing good ball. But I think they just get caught sometimes in going away from what works and what's easy for them. But I will give them credit. It seems to me the longer the season goes on, the more they're adjusting to it. Fair. And they're being more consistent. They're seeing more blowouts and better offense. So I think by the time we get to June, they're going to be a machine. But right now, that's the one thing I'm looking at. Okay, you just had a 40-point quarter doing this. and you just drop down to 22 points because you stopped.
Yeah.
And I think that's just being consistent in how they share the ball and their shot selection is the one thing that gets at me.
Yeah. So our friends over at we're gonna debate whether any of these things can actually derail their hopes of banner 18. But our friends over at Fanatic Sportsbook, their current odds: Celtics plus 330 to win the title. The Nuggets behind them at plus 400. The Bucks at plus 430. It is and then the Clippers right behind it plus 1,000. I think that sort of tells you here, like we will obsess about some of the minutia, but like when Fanatics looks at this and they say, oh, that team should be there, right? Like that's a team that should be there at the end. But I will give you two things, and then you can tell me if either of these can derail them. One, they got to start making their free throws. They weirdly at the start of the year they were like they could not miss. They were really good, and this has been a trouble spot in the past where they'd like go through these stretches where for whatever reason they'd start missing free throws, and you'd be like, what is going on? Especially fourth quarter free throws. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe I'll have to go back and track it. Maybe last 10 games, I'm like, what is going on with this team? To the point where Luke Cornett is now at the free throw line, injecting ice in his veins because the Celtics were 4 of 12 to start the third quarter the other night. 4 of 12.
Yeah.
And they have Jason Tatum and all these all-stars on their roster. Am I crazy? What the hell's going on with the free throws?
I don't know. I think it's getting to them now. They're thinking about it. That game the other day, they went from not taking any free throws at all in the first half. And then they started going to the basket. They started getting the calls, getting the whistles. And then everybody just went cold. It wasn't one person. It was everybody who went to the line. You're like, oh, God, here we go. Yeah. It was to the point where it was last night with the Jaylen Brown play. I'm like, oh, yeah, he got the foul. And I'm like, man, this dude, hope he makes them both. Like, you were really worried that he wasn't going to make the free, even if he got the call.
Exactly.
And it's just, they go through these stretches. I've seen Tatum and Brown go through this before where it looks like they're shooting 50%, but they're not. They're not shooting up to their capabilities, but as a team, it's just weird to see them go through these stretches. But I think it comes with them getting to the basket more, getting used to the free throws. It's kind of a rhythm thing. I think when they go long stretches of not taking any at all, like they did the other night, when they finally get to the free throw line, it's like, oh, I haven't been here in a while.
Yeah. And
guys just kind of, their rhythm is off a little bit. But you've seen games earlier in the year where they were, 26 for 26, I think, in one game.
Yes.
So they're capable of doing it, but if you notice, the more attempts they get, the higher their percentage. So I think they have to get to the line, and it's kind of like Paul Pierce was good for this. He free throw line would get him going everywhere else. He would force his way to the line. Even if he missed a couple early, he would go through those stretches where he'd hit 8, 9 in a row, but just get a rhythm from the free throw line. So I think them getting to the line is a start, and then they do it more often. They'll get into a flow of making those free throws, but it is weird and bizarre.
All right, so I'm not going to chalk that up. I'm not going to say that could potentially derail them. They got to make their free throws in the playoffs, but I'm with you. I think if they're in that part of the year where you're trying to get to the line more, where you're more committed to getting to the line, like I feel pretty good about them being able to get in that rhythm and not have those 4 for 12 stretches, and hopefully Luke does not have to take pressure-packed free throws at any point. And the other thing that's kind of bugging me, and to bring this podcast full circle, we were talking about some of the late game execution, and I think you nailed the put it on the head there, where you said, they get away from what they've done for 4 quarters for the first 42 minutes, and then the last 6, it's like they forget to move the ball, they get ISO heavy, and I know this happens throughout the NBA. This isn't like a Boston only thing. But there was a great Twitter thread, and I wish I could remember who had it today. As my suggestion page was chock full of either angry Celtics fans with the last 2-minute report, or someone went through and graded each of the Celtics' final possessions. And I did a quick scan through it. I'm as I'm rolling it through my mind, I'm like, there's no way any of these plays are an A, because like I can't remember like a really good end of game, close game execution where it was like, wow, like that was like perfect. Like Joe's had some good ATOs, stuff like that, but their execution has typically been pretty sloppy in terms of settling for poor shots. And that's what Jaylen did the other night. Like I felt like good that he potentially could have drawn the foul, but they still got to be better in that situation. If you freeze frame it, you think back to Memphis, he had Kristaps wide open in the paint and didn't get the ball to him, or was that Charlotte? One of those games.
Charlotte.
There was last night, Derek White is wide open. Kristaps is literally like, over here, throw it to him. And Jaylen, in attempts to get the 2 for 1, which the Celtics obsess about a little bit too much, did not probably make the right play in that instance. But I also get it. He was cooking at 40 points. Like, he technically got fouled. I can't be mad.
Yeah, he did
with
everything
the idea.
right.
I just would like to see better instances of, let's run a high pick and roll. Let's find a better shot. Like, let's do it at the right part of the shot clock. They just got to get a little bit better there. And I will say that is something that I think they have to be just a little bit better at by the playoffs in order to, because you're not going to blow doors off teams throughout the playoffs. Like, hopefully they do, like maybe they will, but the 2008 Celtics showed us you could roll throughout the regular season, but then when you get to the playoffs, those games get tight. Will they figure out how to be a great late fourth quarter team?
I think they can. I think they go back and look at the film and they see this like, dag, when Jalen rose up, there was 3 guys kind of within arm's length of him, it looked like. And if he just rose up and just, like you said, swung it, somebody was going to get an open look there. But I think, and he took it wasn't that it was 3 people there. He pumped it. He double pumped it when he got in the air. And I think that was almost an impossible shot to make. But I think as time goes on, and if they play more closer games, they get more of these situations similar to the free throws. I think they'll execute it more. I don't want to see them playing it nail biters every night. I do not. But I think getting those close game reps would be better for this team as they go on and be more battle tested. You don't want to see them, like you said, get to the first round like that 08 team and find themselves in a 7-game series against a bad team because they can't close out. But I think as time goes on, they'll figure out a way to close that out, figure out who needs the ball in their hands. And again, in this situation, Tatum wasn't there, so it was a little different. But I think they're good enough to figure out, okay, we can get a bucket against this team and put this one away. But my only other issue in that game, and some of these games, is defense, second half defense. They give 75 yesterday, whatever it was.
I mean, that third quarter, you can't. I mean, all you have to do is not be terrible, and that game is salted away. And that was a team that was on the ropes with no Halliburton after leaving with the injury. And you have 44 points as TJ McConnell is running circles around you. I'm with you. Like, all you have to do is not be awful. And sometimes they just love making their lives more difficult than it needs.
Yeah. And I think that falls in the late game execution is on the other end as well. And that allows them to be in these tight situations. So I think it goes both ways. Just figuring out not to foul. Don't leave guys free. Just confusion on your switching and stuff like that. Just little things they just need to tighten up. I know it seems like we're nitpicking. This is the best team in the league.
Yes, exactly.
But if you look back, they should have won every single game they lost. If you go back and look at it. Like every game is like, dag, if they would have just did this, they would have won that game. They haven't been smoked yet.
It is really crazy. I say that all the time. Like, they've lost a bunch in overtime where, they probably shouldn't have had to go to overtime in those games. And even the games that have slipped away, I think they must lead the league in games that have been lost by 5 points or less because they just really haven't had a game outside of maybe Golden State, where but even then they had
overtime. Yeah.
So it just feels like they've been really competitive in everything. That's a great sign because when you're in every single game and there's no night where it's just like you have a complete letdown, I feel good. That's why our friends over at Fanatic Sportsbook are so bullish on them. Powered by Fanatic Sportsbook, where you can earn up to 5% fan cash on your bets. I hate to end so negative, but I think we brought it full circle. You summed it up perfectly. We're it's not like we're coming down hard on this team. They're the best team in basketball. It's just when you're hunting for banner 18, we gotta find something to nitpick.
Yeah, I mean, and these things I'm pretty sure the coaching staff has said to them, we're good, but we can be better than what we are now, and they can be. And I think a lot of it too, a lot of these things that we kind of nitpick on, I would say a lot of injuries, but guys have been rotating in and out constantly for the past, month or so. And we see when they're all there, they're 16-1 or something like that when everybody's there. So that's a big part of them. Late game execution, bad quarters, just little things. Part of it is they haven't had everybody there long enough. But I think come May, June, whatever, if they're all there and they're all not relatively healthy, I think they're going to be a wagon. They're going to be tough to beat. But right now, there's just little things that they can work on to make them a legit championship contender.
And like you said, they're 17-0 at home, trying to go to 18. The only games I think about all the losses, and it's all Minnesota, OKC, Golden State. You don't have to worry about those teams until you get to the finals.
Yeah, you're right.
You're probably not going to see Charlotte along the way, and hopefully you don't have another
something bad happened.
So something went really wrong. Like Gordon Hayward went so scorched earth, they are not trading him at that point.
Yeah,
but yeah, Celtics are in a good spot. The Celtics fans are in a good place as long as you don't look at the Look
Yeah,
at the last 2-minute report.
Yeah, no. Stay away from that. And this team, this weekend coming up, these games, they have another chance to make a statement. They have another chance to send a message across the league, and I think they will. There's some get back on this playing against Minnesota, but I think they have a chance to send another message to the league that this is definitely the team to beat going forward.
Cerrone, I love your positive energy. You had me worried that people were going to be like, this thing was too negative. Now you just brought us full circle. As always, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, good stuff. Cerrone brought me back to earth. Every time I started treading down that path of, I'm angry and this is bad, and kindly reminded me, yeah, this team's pretty good at basketball. And this little stretch coming up should tell us just how good they are. A chance to palate cleanse pretty quickly after that loss in Indy. Minnesota Timberwolves coming to town. Celtics should have revenge on their mind after losing up there earlier this season. Then the Celtics get right back on a plane, head up to Milwaukee, second night of a back-to-back, a chance to further show the Bucks who the best team in the Eastern Conference is. Then they come home, and it's an emotional matchup with Ime Udoka and the Houston Rockets coming to team. Yes, these games just keep coming. It's a crazy stretch. I've lost track. I kept saying 5 and 7 days. I think we're done that. It's 9 and 14. All I know is these pods keep coming at you, and I'm thankful y'all keep listening. So go subscribe, check us out on the YouTube page. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk Podcast.